G'day, guys, and welcome to Warrior by Design. I'm your host, Benjamin John. So we've had a few episodes by now, and you can see kind of where I suppose maybe some of you can see kind of where I'm going with some of this stuff, right? So I just wanted to, I suppose, touch on another couple of areas, right? Like the whole reason for me doing this was obviously to help support people to not necessarily go through as much of a struggle or for as long as I did or as deep as I did with my own journey, right? But there's one key thing that I suppose I just want to touch on right now that really I have to be completely honest about is there is a point within the journey, if you want to call it that, your life, your experience, that we really have to start becoming truthful with ourselves. Like some people will call this accountability. Some people will call this getting inspiration, dreaming, or whatever you need to get the motivation to do the things you need to do to explore and create the life that you want to create and be the person you want to be, right? But the biggest thing is that I've noticed is really getting deep and truthful with ourselves. If we talk about accountability for a minute, right? Why would rather be inspired and have a dream and have some sort of, goal in mind that gives us enough inspiration to do the things we need to do? That's the ideal place to be, right? But at the start, we need to come to a place of acceptance that potentially things that we're doing are creating experiences within our life that we don't necessarily love or like. We have to become honest with ourselves in the sense that if we're not willing to do what we need to do to have the life we need to have or want to have, then how do we truly believe this is going to come about? Now, I try and say all this with as much empathy as possible, right? Because I remember back when I was going through this journey, especially when I was in my dark moments, and even today, even moving forward, as far as I have, there's still moments where I get caught up in that cloudiness, in the the thought, the monkey mind going on, get caught up in my day-to-day experiences, have moments that feel like they're or can be experienced as if they're uncontrollable. But the interesting thing is when those things surpass or are over, and I look back on some of those experiences with honesty, with myself, trying to be as truthful as possible with myself, I start to realize that maybe what I was experiencing wasn't necessarily truthful. And when I say truthful, if I look at let's become an investigating journalist for a second, right? We'll go deep into our experiences and go, what really happened in that moment? Was the person I was communicating with, let's say in this case, a loved one, were they really that evil? Were they really that spiteful? Do we truly believe that they did these things intentionally to hurt us? Now, obviously, the scenarios where people may intentionally do things, right? But what I'm talking about is the everyday stuff we get caught up in. Let's say even within our businesses or work life. Is someone genuinely out to get us? Is life genuinely as bad as we make it out to be at times? And if we start to investigate things, and when I say investigate, we start to look at, well, let's look at facts, right? That's supposedly what investigating journalism was all about. Looking at the facts, looking at what we can see to be described or experienced as facts. So let's make up a scenario, for instance. Say a loved one, you have a partnership, right? Husband and wife, for example. let's just say the wife was coming in one day. This couple's been married, lovingly married for years, and the wife potentially says something to the husband, right? Or vice versa, the husband says something to the wife. If they're genuinely in love, or they just genuinely have a great deal of love for each other, in love, and we can talk about later, but generally have a lot of love with each other and for each other, is it rational to necessarily think that that person is in that moment genuinely trying to hurt you? And the same going the opposite way. Are you genuinely trying to hurt them? If you have genuine love there, is that something you're genuinely trying to do, hurt someone, or they're trying to hurt you? And if not, what is that then? What is going on in that scenario? And this is where I've realized that if I look back at myself, what was going on for me in that scenario? Let's just say, for instance, the wife said to the husband, or the husband said to the wife, something that generally triggered something in them from a childhood or from a previous experience, right? Where they'd been seriously hurt. Now, in that moment, the other person may not actually be doing to them in the same way they believe they're experiencing, genuinely hurting them or trying to hurt them. This might not even be happening or taking place. And what's potentially happening in that scenario is something's been said to me, and I might have had feelings about it, or the wife might have had feelings about it, vice versa. But what's actually happening in that moment is it's triggering something in me from something that's from a total different experience, total different scenario. And it's been brought, all those feelings have rushed in and been brought into this current scenario. And this is where we need to start realizing, are we being truthful in our moment, in the moment that we're having? And if we can pause and look back at some scenarios or some situations we've been in, are we treating it with the same, I suppose, are we treating it the same as a previous event, or something that maybe experienced as a previous event versus something that's in the moment? And what I've found for myself personally is more and more I look at things, I realize that even if there is some sort of underlying thing that the other person's not saying, or whatever the case may be, it's not necessarily to genuinely hurt me. They may have their own stuff going on from their own triggers, from previous experiences, so on and so forth, for both parties, to the point that we actually aren't even really communicating with each other in the moment. We're actually communicating with each other from previous experiences we've had of previous hurt, previous trauma, previous grief, or whatever the scenario may be. We're actually communicating from the past emotion, past experiences in the current moment. And if we allow ourselves to acknowledge that some of the thoughts, some of the feelings that we're currently experiencing may not necessarily be 100% accurate, and start to really, and we can only distinguish this for ourselves. We can't do this for others, and we can't impose any of our own stuff on other people. But if we genuinely look at ourselves and go, well, okay, in that moment, was it exactly what I saw? Now, this is where the accountability sort of starts coming in. We need to start being truthful with ourselves. Was I acting from the right place that I wanted to be? And was there things that I was doing that I just genuinely, really normally aren't me? Or was there things that I was doing that I'm not actually happy with, or don't really fit who I want to be, or what I want to experience? And the more we're able to have that accountability for ourselves, the more we can actually come to a point of understanding what it is we're experiencing. And if it's not factual, if it's not always true, and if it's not always factual, and if it's always not to that point, well, then what is truth? What is truth at that moment? And if those experiences and beliefs in that moment aren't as accurate as we believe they are because of the past feelings, past emotions, past experiences, past trauma that's coming up in the moment. If that stuff's affecting our day-to-day, moment-to-moment scenarios and experiences, this is what we need to start becoming truthful with ourselves, starting discerning for ourselves, starting to really understand ourselves of who we are. Because the more we understand who we are and what we want in life, that having that inspiration for a goal, or being very clear on our values and everything that we, who we are, what we want in life, our why, how, and what we need. The more we become clearer with that stuff, the more we can the easier we can move towards who we want to be and creating the life that we want to create. If we're not able to come to a place of being truthful with ourselves, honest with ourselves, and challenging ourselves with some of the things we know to be true, that's what we believe we know to be true, right? Or the things that we believe to be true, or things that we experience and how we experience our environment and the environment we're in, we can't start being truthful with some of this stuff. That's kind of the first step, is really starting to question, how do we start challenging what's happening in our environment, what's happening in our mind, what's happening with our beliefs, what's happening with our perceptions. And if we do this investigating journalism with ourselves, with this truthful intent, we may experience that it's not exactly what we see to be true. And the more we're able to do this, the more we're able to create the environment we want, the more we're able to create the experiences we want, the more we're be able to create the beliefs, the understandings, and the perspective we want to experience. Because if those other scenarios aren't necessarily always true, or don't seem to be as factual as we think they are at times, well, then we have choice. We have choice to change. We have choice to look at things in a different way. We have choice to believe things differently. We have choice to be able to create things differently. And that's where the magic happens. When we start to get to a point of understanding that things may not be as black as white as we seem, and everything we know to be true about ourselves may not be as factual as we think. The more we explore for ourselves and who we are and everything around us, the more we're able to create how we want to create things, when we want to create things, and the more we're able to be and show up as who we want to be. It's a bit of food for thought, guys. Just putting it out there. Maybe we can become a little bit of an investigative journalist within our own lives and start to discover how much truth is there in what we're experiencing, what we're seeing, what we're believing, and what we're perceiving. Because it's not about the other person. It's not about investigating other people, the way they see things, the way they believe in things, and all that sort of stuff. It's about us, an internal investigation for ourselves. Are we truly acting, responding, and being, and experiencing what we believe we're experiencing as factually as we think in the moment? Anyway, guys, a little bit food for thought. A lot of love to you, and interesting stuff coming forward. Moving forward, we'll get some more content out there. And remember, explore, create, and be. Well, thank you for listening. If you found this episode valuable, please take the time to like, share, and subscribe.
it really does make a difference. It helps others out there explore their warrior, create a life of choice by design, and be all that they wish to be. Remember, explore, create, and be.